Welcome, everyone, into the broadcast. I'm Isaac Edelman, founder of FL Teams. It's a Week 17 matchup that featured the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New England Patriots in New England, Foxborough, at Gillette Stadium. And let me tell you, the Patriots absolutely blew out and dominated the Jaguars with rookie QB Trevor Lawrence. But anyway, I'm joined by Samuel Reis and Grant Flood here today to recap this week 17 matchup. Sorry, Sam and Grant. We'll start with Sam. Welcome. Obviously, both of you guys watched this game. Sam, the Patriots won by a final score of 50-10. Without recapping and analyzing the game itself, you can tell that's a blowout. But how about you discuss like the top headlines from this game? Obviously, there were some surprising breakout performances.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Isaac. Yeah, the Patriots on offense were just firing on all cylinders, and the big surprise I'd say was Christian Wilkerson, who had 2 touchdown catches. This was his first career NFL start, and he had two touchdown catches tonight. Could have had 3 actually. He had a drop later on. He could have had a hat trick of touchdowns in his first career NFL start. So that was really surprising. I think with this big performance from Wilkerson, perhaps N'Keal Harry could officially see his time in New England come to an end. And then, the defense came up big. 3 total interceptions from 3 different players: Miles Bryant, J.C. Jackson, and then Kyle Duggar. So all around, the Patriots with just almost a perfect performance, which they needed after 2 straight losses.
Yeah, and also notably, on the running game, Stevenson had 2 touchdowns on 19 carries, 107 rushing yards. That's pretty good considering he outrushed Damian Harris, who's been, New England's reliable back. Now, Grant, the Jaguars, obviously they only put 10 points on the board. On the positive side, Trevor Lawrence did something. What did he do?
Well, the only positive takeaway from this one from the Jaguars was, other than showing that Tyson Campbell was a good draft pick, was also Trevor Lawrence threw his first touchdown since week 12. It was 50-3 at the time, but a 28-yard checkdown touchdown to Dare Ogunbowale, replacing the now injured James Robinson, scoring, a little garbage time touchdown doesn't hurt. I'm glad that we didn't see C.J. Beathard in this one, even though it was an absolute blowout. You have to have the rookie, play through terrible games like that. And after throwing 3 interceptions, 2 definitely on the quarterback's fault, he bounced back with a nice little touchdown to end the game. Now, does it savor his performance? Not at all. I'm starting to notice that Lawrence is he's definitely getting a little bit too confident with his throws. And for someone, especially a rookie who's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns, that's not good. But we'll see. This is year 1. He has had 2 head coaches. Definitely not the best offense around him. So there's definitely room to improve here for Trevor Lawrence in the future.
Absolutely. And Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars likely will have the first pick in the draft. And looks like it's going to be the defensive end, Hutchinson from Michigan, which isn't helping Trevor Lawrence. It's definitely helping the Jaguars, right? Without a doubt. He's a heck of a prospect. But, he has no help with the offensive line and with his receivers. But like you just said, Grant, his 3 interceptions were his fault, right? It wasn't necessarily, a wide receiver's fault, which is why, some people are falsely claiming that Trevor Lawrence's interceptions are, due to the fault of his receivers. Now, Marvin Jones was, Jacksonville's offseason signing. He had 2 catches for 46 yards. Laquan Treadwell had a team-leading 6 receptions for 87 yards. But overall, the Jaguars cannot get anything going. Obviously, Travis Etienne hasn't played 1 game this season. He's the rookie, and James Robinson recently got injured. But now let's turn the pages back to the Patriots, right? 50 points. Mac Jones was pulled, not because he did bad, but because it was such a blowout. And, substitution was Brian Hoyer. But Mac Jones, 227 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, completed 22 of 30 passes. And I'd say about maybe like 5 passes were dropped by the Patriots. Sam, let's break down Mac Jones. Patriots, most likely, actually, they clinched the playoffs, so they are headed to the playoffs. Break down Mac Jones' performance and what, the Patriots should be looking forward to ahead of the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I thought Mac Jones had a big bounce back game because obviously the last 2 games, people were saying, maybe he hit a wall here in his rookie season, which happens to a lot of rookies. Maybe they, have a great start to their rookie season, but then all of a sudden start to step back towards reality. And, it is the Jaguars that the Patriots beat. I understand that. But Mac Jones was playing very confidently. I think that has to be a good sign for any Patriots fan. And Bill Belichick, he has to love that from his quarterback because you could see throughout the game he was playing with a lot of confidence and he was enjoying himself too, laughing on the sideline. And when he was on the field, I thought he was making good throws. And the thing about Mac Jones is he's a very intelligent quarterback, unlike Trevor Lawrence, for example, who sometimes makes some risky passes that risks you can't take in the NFL. Even though Mac Jones is just a rookie, he's able to make some real intelligent passes. He knows what throws he's able to make and what throws he quite frankly shouldn't make. So it's not like he's throwing the ball too much, but in that first quarter in particular, the Patriots were throwing the ball often. And yeah, I mean, there were 1 or 2 big throws that Mac Jones made, but for the most part, he just made the routine passes, which is all you ask for from the rookie. If the pass is there, make it. But yeah, what I like the most is that Mac Jones is not a guy who's taking a whole lot of risks, and that's why you see that he threw no interceptions today and had a whole lot of touchdowns. First 4 drives of the game result in a touchdown. So yeah, in all, the IQ of Mac Jones was on full display, I thought, today, and he just makes intelligent decisions time and time again.
Yeah. Now, Grant, I know you do a lot of studying in terms of watching both the Jaguars and Patriots. I know the Patriots were a tough opponent for Jacksonville, but this game was very similar to most of Jacksonville's games this year. What do the Jaguars need to improve on? I know it's obvious to just say, get Trevor Lawrence offensive weapons, right? But you can't just do that and expect players to come out and perform, right? Because Will Fuller from the Dolphins was signed. He's only played in 2 games this year, right? Kenny Galladay, big deal by the Giants. He's done nothing this year. No touchdowns, right? So you can't just go out and sign, top offensive stars. You need to have a strategy. What should that strategy be for the Jaguars?
Yeah, well, I think if you want to go way out into a different universe, I think they should go after Michael Thomas if you want to talk about building weapons around Trevor Lawrence. But no, I'd say for right now, Jacksonville, they have their quarterback and they have their running back. And honestly, if they re-sign DJ Chark after this year, they have their receiver. Their offense is fine. Yeah, they got to improve on their offensive line, but they've been targeting offensive line the past couple of drafts. So that's improving. Slowly, but it is improving. Jaguars were without Cam Robinson today, their left tackle. For defense, I think that's my main concern. It was a big deal. Todd Walsh was a terrible defensive coordinator. Okay, great. They fired Todd Walsh after last year. Defense is still struggling a little bit. And really, other than Josh Allen and Miles Jack, I mean, it's a young defense, and they are not fully developed yet. Now, yes, Campbell's looked impressive, but you also trade away someone like C.J. Henderson, a cornerstone for that secondary. That definitely didn't help. And obviously, if you draft Hutchinson first overall, well, that's good. But now you're just getting another edge rusher when you already have Josh Allen. Edge rusher set. I would love to see this team really go after a linebacker in free agency. I would definitely say Leighton Vander Esch would be on my list. I know he's very injury prone, but when healthy, he's very consistent. So, if I'm Jacksonville, I am targeting for safety and linebacker. I think now that offense is shaping up to be good for the future. You got to shape up that defense. And one player who's not impressed me at all in his time in Jacksonville was Andrew Wingard. Again, I feel Jacksonville needs to improve in the safety position. He has not impressed me one bit. And I think for, honestly, some of these players that they've had for 3-4 years now, they got to cut their ties with and, try to pick up some other players off practice squads and try to develop them or obviously go in the draft and free agency.
I agree. And obviously, with a lot of teams that have the first overall pick in the draft, that's because they finished with the worst record they do need help on both sides of the ball, and I'm glad you brought up the defense. So we're gonna wrap this up soon. Again, final score 50-10. There's a lot to break down, but yet little to break down because it's the obvious, right? Patriots won by a lot. Jaguars lost by a lot. And that's because when you compare both team squads and the players and the depth, the Patriots have, the better team. So, Sam, heading into the playoffs, right? The Patriots are on fire. Mac Jones performing well. Very accurate, right? High completion percentage. The Patriots have a strong running game. And slowly but surely, the Patriots are, figuring out who their wide receivers are. But there's still a piece that the Patriots are missing. And that's the fact that if the running game is slow, right?
Right. Yeah.
You need to rely on the receiving game. And that's why the Patriots lost to the Colts, right?
Yep.
So, Sam, what do you think the Patriots need to improve on? Now, I know this doesn't have a relation to this game that just happened because Jaguars defense was no match. But in the playoffs, you're going to need to get the receiving game going.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the key. And I don't, maybe there is a limit with this Patriots team. There probably is. I don't think it's, I think it's a little bit crazy to say like this team could win the AFC Championship game and make it to a Super Bowl. I think that's going a bit too far. And yeah, you touched on it. The fact of the matter is, these aren't top receivers, and I think that's been proven by the way Mac Jones tries to get multiple guys involved. Because Jacoby Myers, you probably say, is their best receiver, which, no offense to Jacoby Myers, I really love him, but there's not that star guy you have that you can always rely on time and time again. So yeah, and you even said, Isaac, even today there were a couple of bad drops where you're like, come on, you got to make that catch. And if you're going up against one of the best teams in the AFC in the playoffs, you can't afford to have those mistakes. So yeah, maybe it is a case of you have what you have and you have to make the most of it, which is why I think we're seeing, the Patriots go to their running game often, which, isn't a bad thing if it's working well, as he touched on, because they have two great running backs in Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. But yeah, if there's a team in the playoffs who finds a way to slow down the Patriots running game, it's a question of whether the passing game can get going. I'm not too concerned about Mac Jones. His accuracy's there. On most passes that are dropped, it's usually not his fault. Let's be honest. Sometimes it is, of course, but usually it's on the receiver. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about the Patriots defense, to be honest, but there are still question marks there because we saw the last couple of weeks the Patriots run defense isn't great. So I still have my question marks also about the defense. So if the defense can step up like they did today, even though it was against a Jacksonville team, and yeah, the passing game can perform consistently well, I think the Patriots have a shot to make a deep run in the playoffs. But yeah, I just don't know. As you said, Isaac, I still have my question marks about the passing game a little bit. And yeah, maybe the Patriots are a little bit too over-reliant on that running game, which could be an issue because we saw in two pivotal regular season games the last 2 weeks, the Patriots slip up because that running game wasn't as efficient. So I do still have my questions, but I'm cautiously optimistic as we head into the postseason.
Awesome. Okay, so next week, the Patriots play the Dolphins in Miami. The Dolphins, not yet eliminated from playoff contention, but they're going to need a lot of puzzle pieces to fit together. Meanwhile, the Patriots have clinched a playoff spot, but they are fighting to win the division. They have the same record as the Bills. So a quick prediction. We'll start with Grant. Predict the Dolphins-Patriots game next week.
I have New England winning 27-20. I know Miami's won the last two against the Patriots, especially that week 1 game. But, I got to go with the Dolphins right now. Their defense is shaping up to be really good. So I definitely think that Miami's defense will keep New England's offense at bay. But ultimately, I do think that as Sam's talking about how good the rushing attack is for New England, I think it'll help. Damian Harris has been healthy now for a couple of weeks. He's back in the lineup, has 5 touchdowns in 2 games. Ramondre Stevenson, he's been very consistent all year, especially for a second-string running back, but even he got over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns today. He's been tearing it up since the preseason. He's really impressed me a lot, Ramondre Stevenson. And, it's going to come down to a battle of defenses, but I'd say around 27-23 probably will be the final score for this one. I'm going to give the edge to the Patriots just because – Mac Jones is developing into a very good game manager where Tua Tagovailoa hasn't really impressed me a whole lot. I know the Dolphins were on that incredible winning streak for a little bit there, but I feel like other than the Baltimore game, they were lacking that convincing win because, they were beating up on basically the NFC East essentially and, a couple of other mediocre teams. New England, this is a team where, okay, you played them week 1. That's great. That's week 1. Here we are 17 weeks later. Playoff implications are on the line. I know New England's snake bitten in Miami, but you just got to go with the Patriots here. Brian Flores, though, he's always going to give up a heck of a fight, especially against his former head coach. But I got to go with the Patriots to win this one.
Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree with Grant. I think it'll be a close game as well. I'm going to take the Patriots 24-20. I think, because as you said, Isaac, Miami aren't officially eliminated from playoff contention. So obviously there's going to be a bunch of simultaneous games that will have playoff implications on Miami, but they won't be in control of those other results. So they'll go into the game with the mindset that we got to get the win done. And obviously they'll need a lot of help elsewhere, but still they're going to go in saying, if we win, we'll give ourselves a chance. So I think the Dolphins are going to come out hungry. And therefore I think it's going to be a good fight because obviously the Patriots are still fighting for playoff seeding as well. The Jets almost shocked the Bucs today, but I don't think Buffalo are going to have any issues against the Jets. So I think the Bills are ultimately going to win the division. As long as the Bills beat the Jets next weekend, they will win the division. So the Patriots are coming in with pretty much, as long as the Bills win, the highest seed the Patriots will be able to get is the 5 seed, which is where they currently stand. But New England will be focused on locking in that 5 seed, getting the highest seed possible heading into wild card weekend. You don't want to slip down the standings and theoretically have a harder matchup in that wild card round. So it's a huge game for both teams, even though the Patriots have already clinched. Playoff seeding is at stake. But yeah, I think as Grant mentioned, I think a big part of it comes down to the quarterbacks because you have 2 great, really good defenses, I'd say, going up against each other. But I'm always going to take, Mac Jones over Tua for the reasons Grant brought up. Sometimes you don't know what kind of decisions Tua is going to make, and Grant hit the nail on the head. Mac Jones has become a really good game manager. I'm going to trust him to make the right decisions in the clutch when it matters the most. And of course, ironically, the Patriots lost a close game to Miami back in week 1, but that was so long ago, as Grant said, that you got to throw that game out the window. I don't think that will have really any implications on how this game will play out. And yeah, I think the Patriots will pull it out in a close one in the end and finish the regular season 11-6.
Awesome. And then the Jaguars play the Colts. Colts not eliminated yet. They currently sit at 9-7. They, as long as they beat the Jaguars, will make the playoffs. And obviously the Colts are coming off a tough loss to the Raiders. But, could the Jaguars possibly, ruin Indianapolis, fans and steal a win from the Colts last week of the season? Carson Wentz? Grant, let me know.
Hey, here's an interesting fact. The last time the Colts won in Jacksonville, 2014.
Really?
Yes, that is literally, though, the only thing I can say that makes me want to believe Jacksonville is winning this game. Indianapolis, especially after losing to Las Vegas, they're like, okay, we're in and we're in. This is going to be an absolute beatdown. Not saying 50-10 beatdown like today, but I think this could be a massacre really quickly. I'm talking about Carson Wentz throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor is going to have his statement game to, hopefully get an MVP vote or two. He's going to have a great game, obviously. The Colts defense is going to show why they're legit. I wouldn't be shocked if Trevor Lawrence ends the season with another 2 or 3 interceptions on his stat sheet. And it's unfortunately going to be another loss for Jacksonville. They're going to wrap up the year 2-15. And they're going to lock up the number 1 pick back-to-back years. But you know what? That's okay. Sometimes you would rather have the number 1 pick than win the meaningless Week 18 game. I'm not one of those fans. I would love to spoil the Colts' playoff hopes, but especially since the Colts also lost a couple of tiebreakers earlier on in the year. But I think ultimately that 6-game winning streak in Duval is going to come to an end, and I'm going to say the Colts win 35-10.
Awesome. Okay, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Once again, Week 17 matchup featuring the Patriots and Jaguars was a good one, but only for one team. The Patriots win 50-10. There's one more week left in the NFL regular season for the Jaguars. Well, they look forward to getting the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Meanwhile, the Patriots have, well, let's say, some high hopes, maybe even the Super Bowl, right? Maybe even a matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure to check out FL Teams. FLTeams.com is a top Florida sports source. All of your Florida sports needs, right there, FLTeams.com. For myself, Isaac Edelman, Samuel Reis, Grant Flood, we appreciate everyone for watching. Have a good rest of your night.